Rain hammered against the windshield of my Ford F-150 as I navigated the slick streets of downtown Seattle, the wipers struggling to keep pace with the deluge. The digital clock on my dashboard read 10:37 p.m., another 14-hour workday coming to an exhausted close. My name is Ryan Cooper, former Army Ranger turned construction company owner, and for the past 6 months, I'd been sensing that something in my carefully built life was beginning to crumble. Not my business. Cooper Construction was thriving with 3 major commercial projects underway and a reputation for uncompromising quality that commanded premium rates. No, the foundation showing hairline cracks was my 12-year marriage to Melissa. The sprawling contemporary home that greeted me sat dark except for the faint blue glow emanating from our bedroom window. 3 years ago, Melissa would have been waiting downstairs with a glass of Macallan and that smile that made me feel like I'd conquered mountains. These days, I considered myself fortunate to receive a distracted "hey" before she rolled over, claiming exhaustion from her demanding job as a public relations executive for Seattle's elite clientele. The garage door hummed closed behind my truck, sealing out the persistent northwestern rain. I remained seated for several moments, the engine ticking as it cooled, contemplating exactly when the distance between Melissa and me had begun widening into a chasm. The signs had been accumulating with the subtlety of a slow-moving landslide. The sudden password changes on her devices, the networking events that mysteriously ran until midnight, the way her body angled away from mine in sleep, the text notifications that made her smile in ways I hadn't inspired in months. 15 years in the Army Rangers had honed my instincts for danger. Right now, every fiber of my being was signaling a threat assessment. Something was seriously wrong. I entered through the mudroom, kicking off my steel-toed boots caked with construction site clay. The house maintained an unsettling silence punctuated only by the persistent drumming of rain against the windows. After grabbing a bottle of local IPA from the refrigerator, I ascended the stairs, each footfall feeling unnecessarily heavy against the hardwood. "Hey," I said, leaning against our bedroom doorframe, beer dangling between my fingers. Melissa lay propped against a mountain of decorative pillows, her dark hair twisted into a messy bun, scrolling through her phone with an intensity that suggested whatever she was reading was significantly more engaging than my arrival. At 36, she remained strikingly beautiful. Her career in public relations had given her a polished sophistication that turned heads whenever we attended industry events together. "You're late," she observed without looking up, her perfectly manicured fingers continuing their dance across the screen. "Westlake Tower project meeting ran long. We're behind schedule on the foundation work because of the rain." I took a long pull from my beer, studying her. "How was your day?" "Fine." Her response came clipped, absent any detail or reciprocal interest. I crossed to the walk-in closet, shrugging out of my flannel shirt and jeans, hyper-aware of how Melissa's attention never wavered from her phone. The subtle smirk playing across her lips as she typed made something cold settle in my stomach. "We secured that contract with Johnson Development Group today," I mentioned casually, changing into more comfortable clothes. $37 million for the lakefront commercial complex. Tom's practically walking on air. "That's nice," she replied with the automated politeness of someone who hadn't processed a single word I'd said. Her fingers continued their relentless tapping, occasional soft laughs escaping her lips at whatever, or whoever, occupied her attention. I finished my beer in contemplative silence, watching this stranger wearing my wife's face. The growing realization that I was possibly witnessing the slow-motion collapse of my marriage felt surreal, like observing someone else's life unraveling. "I'm going to grab a shower," I announced, receiving only a distracted nod in acknowledgement. Under the scalding spray, I pressed my forehead against the cool marble tile, allowing water to cascade down my shoulders as I methodically processed the situation. Years of military training had taught me to analyze patterns with clinical precision. The pattern emerging over the past months was unmistakable. Melissa was hiding something significant, something that made her smile secretively at her phone while barely acknowledging my existence. Later, as she slept, or pretended to sleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling, mentally cataloging the evidence. 6 months of increasingly frequent late-night client emergencies. New lingerie appearing in her drawer that I never saw her wear. hushed phone conversations that abruptly ended when I entered rooms, weekend professional development seminars that left no digital footprint I could find, hotel bar charges downtown on her credit card statement on afternoons she claimed to be working late at her office, the casual dismissal of my suggestion that we finally start the family we'd been postponing for years. Two paths stretched before me. Confront her with suspicions and watch her deny everything while becoming more careful with her deceptions, or gather concrete evidence that would eliminate any possibility of gaslighting or rationalization. In combat zones, I never moved without thorough reconnaissance. This situation demanded the same tactical approach. The next morning, Melissa kissed me goodbye with the mechanical precision of someone checking an item off their daily to-do list. She looked immaculate as always in a fitted charcoal dress and stiletto heels that complemented her slender frame. Meeting a potential new client for lunch, she explained, avoiding direct eye contact while applying a fresh coat of lipstick at 7:30 a.m. Probably going to run late, so don't wait up. I nodded, noting the extra care she'd taken with her appearance. Good luck with the meeting. As soon as her BMW disappeared around the corner, I pulled out my phone and made a call to the one person I trusted implicitly. Tom, I need to call in a favor, brother. Tom Reynolds had been my battle buddy during 3 combat deployments in Afghanistan before becoming my business partner when I started Cooper Construction after leaving the service. There was no one I trusted more completely with both my life and my company. What's happening? His voice came alert and focused despite the early hour. I need to implement some security upgrades at the office. Off the books. A weighted pause stretched between us. What kind of security are we talking about? The kind that record, I replied, my tone making it clear this wasn't about theft prevention. Another pause. This about Melissa? My grip on the phone tightened involuntarily. Let's just call it a precautionary measure. I'll clear my schedule for the morning. Meet you at the office in 30. By noon, we'd installed 3 strategically positioned hidden cameras in my office. One disguised within the bookshelf, another concealed in the air vent, and the third masquerading as a smoke detector. All fed to a secure server that only I could access remotely. Tom watched me test the system with growing concern etched across his weathered face. At 42, he carried the same watchful intensity that had kept us alive in countless dangerous situations overseas. You absolutely sure you want to go down this road, Coop? He asked, leaning against my desk. Some bells can't be unrung. Some things, once you see them. I need certainty, I said simply. Either way, I need to know what I'm dealing with. 5 increasingly tense days passed. Melissa maintained her routine of distracted morning kisses, late nights at client events, and locked phone screens. I focused on our construction projects with mechanical precision, keeping my face a mask of normalcy while checking the camera feeds each night after she fell asleep. On the 6th day, my phone vibrated with a motion alert from the office security system while I supervised concrete pouring at our Belltown high-rise project. Stepping away from the site foreman, I found a quiet corner and opened the secure feed. Melissa's voice came through with crystal clarity. Are you absolutely certain no one's coming back? Then a male laugh, rich with confidence. Ryan's at the Belltown site until at least 6. I checked his calendar with his secretary, said I needed to coordinate some PR timing with him. My blood transformed to ice water in my veins as the camera captured them. My wife perched casually on the edge of my desk, legs crossed elegantly, while a tall man with expertly styled silver-streaked hair stood between them, his hands tracing a path up her thigh beneath her skirt. He doesn't suspect anything? The man asked, and I instantly recognized him. Evan Brooks, luxury developer and frequent feature in Seattle business publications. Mid-50s, divorced twice, with a reputation for aggressive expansion and cutting corners when convenient. Melissa's laugh sliced through me like broken glass. Ryan? He doesn't suspect a thing. Too consumed with his precious construction projects and work schedules to notice anything happening right under his nose. The man literally can't see beyond his blueprints and profit margins. And what about our arrangement? Evan's fingers traced along her collarbone with proprietary familiarity. Everything progressing according to plan. Once divorce papers are filed, Washington's community property laws ensure I get half of everything, including his precious company. Her smile turned predatory. Cooper Construction will make an excellent addition to your development portfolio. The irony that his own expertise will now serve your projects is particularly satisfying. Poor bastard, Evan chuckled, without a trace of genuine sympathy. Built quite an impressive operation with those rough hands of his. Shame to see it slip through his fingers. But business is business, sweetheart. That's what he gets for boring me to death for 12 years, Melissa replied, pulling him closer. I regret every single day I wasted playing supportive wife to a glorified construction worker. I've opened our marriage. He just doesn't know it yet. His loss, my considerable gain, Evan murmured, leaning in to kiss her neck. When are you filing? Next month. My attorney is preparing everything discreetly. Ryan won't know what hit him until the papers are served at his office. Maximum public embarrassment. Brilliant and ruthless. No wonder I'm falling for you. I watched with detached, clinical focus as they proceeded to christen my desk with passionate kisses and wandering hands. The same desk where I'd signed the loan papers to launch Cooper Construction after leaving the military, where I'd stayed countless late nights working on bids that now employed 43 people and supported their families. Instead of the volcanic rage I might have expected, a cold, calculating calm settled over me. The same dispassionate focus that had kept me alive during high-stakes operations behind enemy lines. The betrayal stung, certainly, but underneath that immediate pain, strategic pathways were already forming in my mind. They had declared war without realizing their opponents specialized in battlefield strategy. I closed the feed and immediately called my attorney. Benjamin, I need an emergency meeting today. It's regarding a potential business restructuring and asset protection situation. 3 hours later, I sat in Benjamin Jackson's downtown office, watching his expression transform from professional interest to stunned disbelief as I played the video on my tablet. Jesus Christ, Ryan. He removed his wire-rimmed glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. I don't even know what to say except that I'm genuinely sorry you're dealing with this. I need options, I stated, my voice maintaining remarkable steadiness. She's planning to take my company through the divorce. Ben leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. In Washington's community property state laws, she would typically be entitled to half the value of assets acquired during the marriage, which would include your company unless you had a prenuptial agreement. We don't. We had nothing when we got married. Then she would likely get half in a standard divorce proceeding unless what? Unless the business assets were legally no longer yours to divide at the time divorce papers are filed. I raised an eyebrow, encouraging him to continue. Legally speaking, you could sell your company to a trusted associate. He chose his words with careful precision. For whatever price you mutually agree upon, provided the transaction is properly documented and filed before any divorce proceedings are initiated. Such as $1? The plan was already crystallizing in my mind. Ben hesitated momentarily. It would be highly unusual, but technically legal, as long as it represents a legitimate business transaction between consenting parties and is properly documented with the appropriate regulatory filings. And my personal assets? Separate accounts established after the marriage began would be more complicated for her to immediately access during divorce proceedings. Not impossible, but it would buy valuable time for negotiations. I nodded slowly, the framework of a counteroffensive taking shape. I want you to prepare the paperwork to sell Cooper Construction to Tom Reynolds. Immediately. Ryan, Benjamin cautioned, leaning forward. This is an enormous decision being made under significant emotional duress. I strongly recommend you take at least a day to consider the implications. I've made life or death decisions under far worse conditions, I replied with quiet certainty. Have the paperwork ready tomorrow morning. That evening, I returned home with takeout from Melissa's favorite Thai restaurant and a bottle of the expensive Cabernet she preferred, slipping seamlessly into the role of oblivious husband while my mind calculated moves and counter-moves with methodical precision. Melissa appeared momentarily surprised by the thoughtful gesture, a flicker of what might have been guilt crossing her features before she manufactured a smile and kissed my cheek. What's the special occasion? She asked, pouring herself a generous glass of the dark red wine. I shrugged with calculated casualness. Just thought we could use a night together. You've been working incredibly hard lately with all these client emergencies. She visibly relaxed, reaching for her wine. That's thoughtful of you, Ryan. Sometimes I forget how considerate you can be. Throughout dinner, I observed with detached fascination as she fabricated elaborate stories about meetings that never occurred and clients who didn't exist, all while maintaining flawless eye contact and appropriate expressions of professional frustration and triumph. Her performance was masterful. I would never have questioned a word if I hadn't seen the damning evidence with my own eyes. Each lie she delivered, with practiced sincerity, drove home a painful truth. I had been married to a stranger. We should plan a vacation, I suggested, refilling her wine glass. Get away from the rain and stress. Maybe that resort in Maui you've been mentioning? 3 weeks, completely disconnected from work. Her eyes widened with genuine surprise. Really? You could actually step away from Cooper Construction for 3 entire weeks? For you? Absolutely. I reached across the table to take her hand, noting how she didn't immediately reciprocate the pressure of my fingers. Tom can handle operations. It might be time to consider a more sustainable work-life balance. This doesn't sound like the Ryan Cooper I know, she commented with a nervous laugh. You haven't taken more than 4 consecutive days off since you started the company. I offered a relaxed smile. Maybe I'm finally recognizing what's truly important. I've been thinking about restructuring some aspects of the business anyway. What kind of restructuring? Her question carried forced casualness, but I caught the calculated interest sharpening her gaze. Nothing for you to worry about. Just considering some organizational adjustments to improve operational efficiency and ensure long-term stability. I squeezed her hand. The important thing is that we reconnect. I feel like we've been drifting lately. Something unreadable flickered across her expression. That would be nice. Later, as Melissa slept beside me, or expertly pretended to, I stared at the shadowed ceiling, mentally reviewing our 12-year history together. The lean early years when I'd launched the company with nothing but military discipline and construction knowledge gained from summer jobs during college. How Melissa had supported me then, believing in my vision, when banks were reluctant to extend credit to a former soldier with ambitious plans but limited collateral. The gradual accumulation of success as Cooper Construction established its reputation for quality and reliability. The vacations we'd taken to celebrate milestone contracts, the discussions about starting a family that had eventually transformed into mutual agreement that her thriving PR career made children impractical, the precise moment when something fundamental had fractured between us, though I couldn't pinpoint exactly when the emotional disconnection had begun. By morning, I had completed the necessary mourning for what we'd lost. Now it was time to protect what remained. The following week unfolded with military precision. I signed the legal documents transferring Cooper Construction to Tom for the symbolic sum of $1, with a private agreement that he would sell it back to me for the same amount once the divorce was finalized. I established new accounts at different financial institutions and began methodically transferring funds, maintaining just enough in our joint accounts to avoid triggering suspicion. I documented every suspicious absence, every contradictory explanation, and secured copies of the video evidence on multiple encrypted drives stored in separate locations. Throughout this calculated dismantling of our financial entanglements, I maintained the convincing facade of a husband planning a surprise anniversary vacation, even booking cancelable reservations that would appear on our credit card statements. Tom watched my mechanical efficiency with growing concern during our private strategy sessions in his garage workshop, well away from potential electronic surveillance. You're legitimately terrifying like this, Coop, he commented as we shared aged whiskey in heavy crystal tumblers one evening. I haven't seen this particular version of you since that classified operation in Kandahar. This is simply tactical response methodology, I replied, studying the amber liquid in my glass. Identify threat, secure vulnerable assets, anticipate enemy movements, prepare counter-offensive strategies. And after? Tom's weathered face reflected genuine concern beneath the workshop's overhead lights. After what? After you've protected the business and your personal assets, what's the end game here? Just divorce her and walk away? The question hung between us, demanding honest examination. What exactly did I want beyond protecting what I'd built? Simply safeguarding my company and financial future seemed inadequate punishment for the magnitude of their betrayal and the calculated cruelty they'd exhibited. "No," I finally answered. "Not just divorce." Tom studied me carefully. "What then?" "Justice," I said quietly. "Proportional response." The next phase of my strategy required precise timing and information gathering. Through discreet inquiries among business contacts, I compiled detailed intelligence about Evan Brooks' current development projects. A high-end residential tower in the financial district that was already pre-selling luxury condominiums at premium prices, and an ambitious waterfront mixed-use development that had broken ground just last month. Both represented potential profits in the tens of millions, and both required continued investor confidence and uninterrupted regulatory approvals. I made 3 strategic calls. The first to Daniel Harrison, a former Army Ranger who now held a senior position in the city planning department. The second to Claire Johnson, my exceptionally competent office manager whose brother-in-law worked as an environmental compliance officer for the state. The third to Michael Donovan, an investigative journalist who specialized in exposing municipal corruption and had been looking for a substantive story to boost his career prospects. Nothing explicitly illegal or unethical, simply requests to ensure that Brooks development projects receive the same thorough regulatory scrutiny as any other commercial venture. "Dan, I'm not asking for special treatment," I clarified during our conversation. "Just making sure his waterfront development gets the same rigorous environmental impact assessment as everyone else. No favors, no shortcuts." "Understood," Daniel replied, professional but knowing. "Every development should follow proper protocols, especially those impacting protected shorelines. I'll make sure the review process is appropriately thorough." Within a week, Evan's downtown tower project was facing uncomfortable questions about its structural impact assessment, while his waterfront development encountered unexpected administrative delays with environmental compliance certifications, postponing permits he'd apparently been promised through his usual channels of influence. For a more personal touch, I arranged for a specialized automotive detailing company to visit Evan's home address at precisely 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. His prized Range Rover received an unusual customization. Industrial-grade adhesive mixed with fine metallic glitter applied with artistic precision across every exterior surface, not permanently damaging the vehicle, but ensuring it would require extensive professional intervention to restore. Petty, perhaps, but psychological warfare demands occasional demonstration strikes to establish credibility. I learned about the vehicle incident from Melissa herself, who arrived home visibly agitated that evening. "The strangest thing happened to Evan today," she mentioned, apparently forgetting momentarily that I shouldn't have any familiarity with Evan Brooks beyond casual industry recognition. I glanced up from my laptop with carefully manufactured confusion. "Evan," her composure faltered momentarily before she recovered. "Evan Brooks, he's a potential client I've been cultivating for the past few months." "What happened to him?" "Someone vandalized his car overnight, covered it completely in some kind of industrial glitter adhesive." Her eyes studied my face intently. "Very strange and specifically targeted." I shrugged with perfect nonchalance. Development business can generate serious enemies, especially for someone with Brooks' reputation for cutting corners and leveraging political connections. "Yes," she replied slowly, "it certainly can become quite competitive." The following Saturday evening, we attended a dinner party hosted by mutual acquaintances, James and Catherine Wilson, a neurosurgeon and his art gallery owner wife, who occupied an architecturally significant home overlooking Puget Sound. Melissa had been uncharacteristically attentive throughout the week, perhaps sensing some fundamental shift in our dynamic without being able to identify precisely what had changed. We arrived fashionably late, Melissa stunning in a deep burgundy dress that accentuated her figure to maximum advantage. I played my assigned role of proud husband with Oscar-worthy conviction, hand resting proprietarily at the small of her back as we greeted our hosts and circulated among the assembled guests. Primarily affluent professionals representing Seattle's upper echelons, the social circle Melissa had methodically cultivated through her PR connections. I had just procured drinks for us from the bar when Evan Brooks made his entrance, looking slightly harried despite his expensively tailored suit. Our eyes connected briefly across the crowded living room. His widened perceptibly with recognition before he hurriedly looked away, gravitating toward a cluster of commercial real estate developers gathered near the floor-to-ceiling windows, showcasing the dramatic nighttime view of Elliott Bay. Melissa tensed beside me, fingers tightening around her champagne flute. "I didn't realize he would be attending," she whispered with poorly concealed alarm. "Who?" I inquired with practiced innocence, passing her a fresh glass of sparkling wine. "Evan Brooks, potential client," she added hastily, "the one I mentioned having car trouble." "We should probably introduce ourselves," I suggested, beginning to move purposefully in his direction. "Perhaps I can help you finalize whatever PR arrangement you've been discussing. Construction and development perspectives often align." Her hand gripped my forearm with surprising strength, manicured nails digging in slightly. "No, I mean, he appears deeply engaged with associates right now. Terrible timing for business discussions." "Of course," I acquiesced smoothly. "Another time, perhaps." Throughout dinner, I observed their elaborate performance of strategic non-interaction, the way they studiously avoided direct eye contact while remaining hyper-aware of each other's movements around the room. Occasionally, I caught Evan glancing in my direction, with an expression hovering between curiosity and barely suppressed unease. After the main course concluded, James Wilson tapped his crystal glass with a silver spoon, calling for the room's attention. "Before dessert is served, I believe Ryan has an announcement he'd like to share with everyone." All eyes shifted toward me. Melissa's expression reflected genuine confusion. I stood, raising my wine glass with practiced confidence. "Thank you, James. Yes, I do have something significant to announce. As of last Tuesday, Cooper Construction has officially transferred ownership." A collective murmur rippled through the gathering. Melissa's face drained of color so rapidly, I momentarily wondered if she might faint. "My longtime friend and trusted business partner, Tom Reynolds, has purchased the company and will be taking over as chief executive officer." I raised my glass higher. "To new directions or exciting transitions." The assembled guests applauded politely, though confusion was evident in their expressions. Melissa's champagne glass trembled noticeably in her grip. "You sold the company?" she whispered as I resumed my seat. "Why wouldn't you discuss something that monumentally important with me before making such a decision?" "It happened rather quickly," I replied, sampling the chocolate torte that had been placed before me. "Exceptional opportunity for Tom to assume leadership. And for me, I've been contemplating exploring alternative directions professionally." "But what was the sale price?" Her question attempted casualness, but couldn't disguise the calculating anxiety underneath. I smiled pleasantly. "A mutually agreeable market valuation." I could practically see the rapid calculations happening behind her eyes. Half of nothing would still amount to nothing. Her carefully constructed exit strategy had just encountered an unexpected roadblock. As the dinner party concluded, I excused myself to use the restroom. Upon returning, I discovered Melissa and Evan engaged in a heated, whispered exchange in a secluded alcove adjacent to the coat check area. I paused just beyond their line of sight, listening. "What the absolute hell is happening?" Melissa hissed, panic evident beneath her attempt at hushed tones. "Did you know anything about this business sale?" "Completely blindsided," Evan replied, agitation making his voice tighter than his customary smooth delivery. "But it's not coincidental that my developments are suddenly drowning in regulatory red tape, and now this suspicious business transaction appears. Something isn't adding up." "He knows," Melissa said, voice constricted with dawning horror. "Somehow he absolutely knows about us." "Impossible. We've maintained complete discretion." I stepped around the corner, hands casually in my pockets. "Good evening." They separated with comical abruptness, guilt flashing across both their faces before social masks clicked back into place. "Ryan," Melissa attempted recovery, smoothing her dress unnecessarily. "This is Evan Brooks. I was just making a proper introduction since he's a potential client I've mentioned." I extended my hand with practiced cordiality. "Ryan Cooper. Pleasure meeting you formally, though I'm no longer affiliated with Cooper Construction as of last week." Evan shook my hand, his grip deliberately firm, but his eyes betraying wariness. "Heard impressive things about your work over the years. You've established quite a respected reputation in the regional construction industry. Thank you for the professional acknowledgement. I maintained my pleasant demeanor. Speaking of professional reputations, I understand your waterfront project is experiencing some regulatory challenges recently. Environmental compliance concerns? His jaw tightened perceptibly. Standard procedural reviews. Nothing extraordinary in development circles. Certainly, I agreed with a knowing smile. Although in today's regulatory environment, even minor compliance questions can rapidly escalate, investors grow uncomfortable with uncertainty. Financing options contract unexpectedly. I maintained unwavering eye contact, but I'm confident a developer of your experience will navigate these temporary obstacles successfully. Melissa's gaze darted anxiously between us, reading the underlying currents. We should probably be leaving, Ryan. Early commitment tomorrow. Actually, I countered calmly, I think we need to have a long overdue conversation. I turned toward Evan. If you'll excuse us, private marital discussion. Evan nodded stiffly before retreating, throwing one final concerned glance toward Melissa. I guided her toward a secluded section of the garden terrace. The October air carried a distinctive chill, the rhythmic sound of waves breaking against the shoreline below, providing appropriate background ambiance. What exactly is happening, Ryan? Her voice carried an unfamiliar edge, fear inadequately disguised as irritation. I've been wondering precisely the same thing for approximately 4 months, I replied with deliberate calm. Constant late nights, passworded messages, new lingerie appearing in your drawer that never seems to be worn in my presence. Her posture stiffened defensively. Are you seriously accusing me of something inappropriate? I'm not presenting accusations. I'm stating observable facts. I gazed out across the dark waters of Puget Sound, moonlight creating a silver pathway across the gentle waves. Such as the fact that you've been engaged in a sexual relationship with Evan Brooks while simultaneously plotting to appropriate my company through divorce proceedings. Her sharp, involuntary intake of breath provided all the confirmation my statement required. That's completely absurd, she attempted, though her voice wavered noticeably. Please don't compound betrayal with insulting my intelligence, Melissa. That particular combination crosses into unforgivable territory. She switched tactical approaches, eyes narrowing calculatingly. You have absolutely no evidence supporting these outlandish claims. I possess high-definition video footage showing you in my office with Evan, explicitly discussing how you intend to claim half my company through divorce and subsequently transfer it to his development portfolio. I watched realization dawn across her features. Security system upgrades. Tremendously ironic that you selected my own office for your strategic planning sessions. Ryan, I can explain everything if you'll just save whatever creative narrative you're formulating. I interrupted dispassionately. Here's what happens moving forward. You expressed desire for freedom from our marriage? Congratulations. Wish granted. Divorce paperwork will be prepared by Monday morning. Standard no-fault dissolution filing. She appeared to regain momentary composure, chin lifting defiantly. Fine. We'll allow respective legal counsel to determine appropriate asset distribution. There are effectively no significant assets requiring distribution, Melissa. I transferred ownership of Cooper Construction to Tom for $1 last week. Completely legitimate business transaction with properly filed documentation. Her expression contorted with disbelieving outrage. $1? That's obvious financial fraud. It represents a legitimate business arrangement between consenting parties. My attorney assures me the transaction will withstand any legal challenge you might consider. I stepped marginally closer. You're certainly welcome to expend considerable financial resources attempting to prove otherwise, but I wouldn't recommend that particular strategy. She stared at me, comprehension gradually dawning. You knew. This entire time? Not the entire time, but certainly long enough to implement appropriate countermeasures. I maintained steady eye contact. You said something particularly meaningful during your candid office conversation, that you regret every single day wasted with me, that you opened our marriage without my knowledge or consent. Those words held significant impact. Her eyes widened with the first genuine emotion I'd witnessed from her in months, panic. Ryan, we should discuss this rationally. I was upset and not thinking clearly during that conversation. On the contrary, I believe you demonstrated perfect clarity in that moment, possibly the first authentic communication you've offered in months. I checked my watch with deliberate casualness. I've arranged transportation for you. I'll be staying with Tom for the foreseeable future. You cannot simply. I absolutely can and have. Enjoy your newfound freedom, Melissa. Consider the significant cost reasonable payment for valuable life experience. As I walked away toward the house, she called after me, voice cracking with what sounded remarkably like authentic emotional distress. Ryan, please don't do this. We need to talk about this. I continued walking without acknowledging her plea. The subsequent weeks unfolded with the mechanical precision of a meticulously planned military operation. As anticipated, Melissa engaged an aggressively credentialed divorce attorney who quickly discovered that Cooper Construction was no longer an asset eligible for community property division. Our joint financial accounts contained modest balances, sufficient for her basic living expenses while seeking alternative employment, but nowhere near the substantial settlement she had clearly anticipated. Meanwhile, Evan's professional complications multiplied exponentially. The environmental review of his waterfront project uncovered legitimate violations that necessitated expensive remediation efforts. His downtown tower's pre-sales momentum stalled dramatically as rumors circulated regarding potential structural design concerns. Rumors I may have carefully mentioned to several influential real estate bloggers and investment advisors during seemingly casual industry conversations. I never initiated direct contact with either of them during this period. Such explicit intervention proved unnecessary. Seattle's commercial development community operated with the interconnected closeness of a small town despite the city's growing international profile, and word traveled rapidly that something fundamentally problematic was happening at Brooks Development. Investors grew increasingly cautious. Financial institutions began requesting additional guarantees and collateral for previously approved funding. Tom kept me regularly updated regarding Melissa's increasingly desperate attempts to contact me. She appeared at the office yesterday afternoon, he informed me during our weekly strategy dinner at his lakeside home. Emotional distress evident, creating quite the dramatic scene until Claire intervened effectively. What specific objective was she pursuing? Claimed urgent need for private conversation with you. Insisted everything represented massive misunderstanding requiring clarification. Tom shook his head with evident disapproval. Claire handled the situation impressively, informed her directly that her presence was unwelcome at Cooper Construction facilities after her documented betrayal of the company's founder. I nodded appreciatively, genuinely grateful for Claire's steadfast loyalty. She had managed my office operations since the company's inception, demonstrating exceptional competence and unwavering dedication throughout our growth trajectory. How are you processing everything? Tom inquired, studying me with the perceptive concern of someone who had witnessed me navigate life-threatening situations in combat zones. Managing adequately, I responded automatically. Complete fabrication, Tom challenged directly, setting his beer bottle down emphatically. I've known you for nearly 20 years, Coop, military and civilian life. You don't need to maintain protective emotional barriers with me. I contemplated the label on my beer bottle, methodically removing it in a single continuous piece. I find myself repeatedly analyzing when exactly everything changed fundamentally between us. When we transformed from partners into strangers occupying the same physical space. Was this betrayal inevitable from the beginning? Did I overlook critical warning indicators that should have been obvious? Don't subject yourself to that particular psychological trap, Tom advised with the wisdom of someone who had navigated his own failed marriage years earlier. Some people simply change over time, or perhaps more accurately, reveal who they've been beneath carefully constructed facades all along. 6 weeks after our confrontation, I received a text message from an unfamiliar number. We need to talk immediately. Critically important. Please respond. M. I deleted it without replying, but similar messages continued with increasing frequency and emotional urgency. Eventually, I agreed to meet her at a busy coffee shop in the downtown business district, neutral territory with abundant witnesses to discourage potential dramatic confrontation. She appeared significantly changed from the polished, confident woman I'd lived with for 12 years. physically still elegantly dressed in designer clothing, but with pronounced dark circles beneath her eyes and a new hollowness to her facial features that suggested significant weight loss. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she began as I claimed the chair opposite her. "What specific purpose required this conversation?" I inquired directly. She wrapped manicured fingers around her coffee cup, knuckles whitening slightly. "I made a catastrophic mistake, Ryan. Everything that happened with Evan, what I said about our marriage, it was monumentally stupid and unforgivably selfish." "Yes," I agreed simply. "It absolutely was. But 12 years together must count for something meaningful," she continued with increasing intensity. "Surely we could at least attempt to—" "Attempt what, specifically?" I interrupted, maintaining emotional detachment. "Pretend I never witnessed you planning to systematically dismantle everything I built? That I never heard you laughing about it in my own office with your accomplice?" Her eyes filled with tears that appeared surprisingly genuine. I was profoundly unhappy and emotionally confused. Evan manipulated my vulnerability and made me believe. "Stop immediately," I cut her off with sharp precision. "Do not describe how he supposedly manipulated your emotions or what he allegedly made you feel. Your emotional relationship dynamics no longer fall within my realm of concern." She dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, mascara creating faint smudges beneath her lower lashes. "He's professionally ruined now, you know. His investors withdrew completely after those anonymous tips about regulatory violations. Karma operates with interesting synchronicity sometimes. It was your orchestration, wasn't it? The permit complications, the random inspections, the devastating rumors?" I offered a non-committal shrug. Regulatory compliance represents a fundamental cornerstone of legitimate development practices. If his projects failed to meet established standards, that hardly constitutes my responsibility. His professional reputation lies in tatters. Mine has been similarly destroyed alongside it. Bitterness crept into her voice. "No respectable PR firm in Seattle will consider hiring me now. Apparently, I've developed a problematic reputation for questionable professional judgment and being challenging to work with productively. Again, natural consequences frequently follow poor decisions." She leaned forward intensely. "What specifically do you want from me, Ryan? Formal apology? Consider it sincerely offered? Public humiliation? I'll literally kneel right here if that satisfies your need for retribution. Just please terminate the systematic dismantling of our lives." "There's no orchestrated vendetta happening, Melissa. Simply natural consequences following transparently dishonorable actions." I stood decisively. "The divorce will be legally finalized next Thursday morning. You're receiving precisely what you explicitly stated wanting, complete freedom from your regrettable marriage. Sincere congratulations on achieving your objective." As I walked toward the exit, she called after me loudly enough for nearby patrons to turn curiously. "This isn't finished between us, Ryan." But from my perspective, that particular chapter had reached its definitive conclusion. The final component fell into place approximately 3 weeks later, when Evan Brooks was arrested on multiple charges, including fraud, tax evasion, and improper influence of municipal officials. The intensified scrutiny directed toward his development projects had apparently revealed years of financial irregularities and questionable business practices that had previously escaped regulatory attention. Melissa wasn't directly implicated in criminal wrongdoing, but her close professional and personal association with him effectively contaminated her reputation by proximity. On the morning my divorce was officially finalized through court proceedings, I returned to Cooper Construction headquarters for the first time in almost 3 months. Claire greeted me with a warm, genuine embrace in the lobby. "Welcome back where you belong, boss," she said with evident sincerity, her intelligent eyes reflecting understanding of everything that had transpired. "Though technically Tom's the official boss, according to corporate documentation." "Temporarily," I replied, surveying the familiar surroundings with fresh perspective. The office now purged of the bitter associations connected to Melissa's betrayal. Tom emerged from my former office, his current office according to legal paperwork, grinning broadly. Perfect timing. I was seriously considering selling this entire operation to the highest available bidder. Running an entire construction company involves considerably more administrative headaches than my project management position required. Later that afternoon, as we shared aged whiskey in what would soon legally revert to my office, Tom handed me a substantial folder containing architectural renderings and preliminary financial projections. "What exactly am I reviewing?" I inquired, examining the detailed drawings. "New project proposal that arrived yesterday. Luxury condominium development on that prime location we've been monitoring in Bellevue for the past 18 months. I raised a questioning eyebrow. The specific property Brooks Development was aggressively pursuing before their current legal complications? Tom's smile contained distinct satisfaction. The very same. Banking consortium that foreclosed on their development rights is extremely interested in partnering with us, given our established reputation for regulatory compliance and structural integrity. Their representatives specifically mentioned our refreshing commitment to ethical business practices during preliminary discussions. I methodically reviewed the comprehensive plans, feeling something significant stirring within me. Not happiness exactly, but purposeful determination. A meaningful path forward through the wreckage of personal betrayal. "Your professional assessment?" Tom inquired, studying my reaction. "I believe," I closed the folder decisively, "the time has arrived to build something entirely new." 8 months later, Cooper Construction, once again under my official ownership following the symbolic $1 repurchase, broke ground on Ascension Towers, an architecturally distinctive residential development destined to redefine Bellevue's evolving skyline. The ceremonial commencement received prominent coverage in regional business publications, complete with photographs of Tom and me symbolically turning the first shovelfuls of earth where the foundation would soon be established. That evening, while dining alone at my favorite steakhouse, I received an unexpected call from Claire. "Have you seen the breaking news?" she asked without preliminary greeting. "Which specific development?" "Evan Brooks received his sentencing this afternoon. 8 years for financial fraud, tax evasion, and corrupt influence of public officials." I set my fork down deliberately. The justice system occasionally functions as intended. "There's additional information," she continued, hesitation evident in her tone. "Melissa attended the sentencing hearing. Television crews captured her having what can only be described as an emotional breakdown outside the courthouse. The footage is circulating extensively across social media platforms." "No longer within my realm of concern," I stated, though something uncomfortable twisted momentarily in my chest despite my determination to maintain emotional distance. After concluding dinner, against my better judgment, I located the video online. There was Melissa, significantly thinner than I remembered, screaming hysterically at reporters as court officers escorted a handcuffed Evan toward a waiting transport vehicle. "He promised me everything and delivered absolute devastation. He systematically destroyed my entire life with his lies and manipulation." I closed the video immediately, feeling strangely hollow rather than vindicated. There was no satisfaction in witnessing her public disintegration, only a lingering sadness for what might have developed differently under alternative circumstances. Nearly 3 years after our divorce was legally finalized, I encountered Melissa unexpectedly at an upscale grocery store near my downtown condominium. She appeared momentarily startled before composing her features into a neutral expression. "Ryan," she acknowledged with a formal nod. "Melissa, how have you been managing?" "Surviving adequately," she responded with brittle brightness. "I'm currently working with Anderson Media Group, junior position with limited responsibility, but represents promising potential for advancement." I nodded encouragingly. "That's positive progress. I'm genuinely pleased you found suitable professional placement." Uncomfortable silence expanded between us. 12 years of shared history and one catastrophic betrayal compressed into the awkward space separating our shopping carts in the produce section. "I understand Ascension Towers is nearing completion," she finally commented. "The architectural design appears impressively distinctive against the skyline. Congratulations on the achievement." "Thank you for the professional acknowledgement." She hesitated momentarily before asking with careful casualness, "Are you currently involved with anyone romantically?" The unexpected question caught me by surprise. "Yes, actually. Nothing officially permanent yet, but progressing meaningfully." I didn't elaborate that my relationship was with Claire, steady, loyal Claire, whose quiet strength and unwavering integrity I had come to value beyond measure. We had been dating for approximately 14 months, building something authentic based on mutual respect and genuine emotional connection. "I'm sincerely glad for you," Melissa said, appearing to mean it genuinely. "You absolutely deserve authentic happiness, Ryan. After everything that transpired between us." As she prepared to continue her shopping, she paused thoughtfully. "For whatever minimal worth you might assign my words now, I am genuinely remorseful, not simply for being discovered, but for the fundamental betrayal itself. It represents the single most catastrophic mistake of my entire existence." I watched her walk away toward the checkout registers, experiencing neither triumph nor lingering anger. Just quiet acknowledgement that some chapters in life conclude definitively, creating necessary space for more meaningful narratives to begin. That evening, as Claire and I enjoyed dinner on my condominium balcony overlooking the illuminated city skyline, she inquired about the unexpected encounter. "How did seeing her affect you emotionally?" I considered the question carefully before responding. "Similar to observing a familiar stranger, someone physically recognizable but fundamentally unknown on any meaningful level." She nodded with intuitive understanding, requiring no additional explanation or emotional processing. That represented one of countless qualities I treasured about her capacity for authentic comprehension without demanding excessive verbalization. "The past remains firmly behind us," I commented, reaching across the table to take her hand. "My primary interest focuses exclusively on whatever experiences await us moving forward."